Good morning. My name is Andrea Ferguson, and I'm here because I know there's a few things that we both want, which is to be safe, to be okay, and to be loved. And to take it a step further, I believe there's something that we want as well, which is health, wealth, and freedom. So, believe it or not, one of the keys to this whole thing, having all of what I just mentioned is actually, I'm just reaching for something here, is actually gratitude. So that's why we're going to talk about the power of daily gratitude. But I wanted to do it in a way where you had some evidence, some neuroscientific evidence, because I think it's very helpful. I know that it's actually helpful for your brain to see the evidence that gratitude is actually something very powerful, and maybe you'll be more likely to participate in it. I am going to take questions if you have them. I'm also going to do something a little bit different, and that is I'm going to share my chat with ChatGPT. I feel like I've been preparing for this for years though, because I personally have practiced gratitude in my life. And I remember there was a period of time where I was consistently writing in my journal, in my gratitude journal, which I know sounds like maybe even a huge hassle, or maybe just something that you don't have the time for or don't want to do. But there are there were real benefits. And I remember one of the biggest benefits was not being not controlling my response in the most positive way. And what I mean by that is as soon as you open your eyes, okay, maybe not as soon as, but from the time that you wake up until the time you go to bed, an unregulated mind will search for threats. And you have to train your brain to not always scan for threats, because why? The wall is not caving in. There's no tiger or bear or lion, oh my, running after us, okay? But you have to train your brain to do that. And once I practiced gratitude, writing a journal, I noticed that it was harder for me to automatically default into finding threats. And the reason that was advantageous is because it helped me with emotional regulation. It helped me with decision making. It helped me in life. And so I'd been practicing that for years. And I'm just going to check in with everybody, make sure that you can actually hear me, see me, and that you have no questions. And if I am good to go, let's see here. Oh, okay. All right. So, as I was saying, practicing gratitude really showed up in that didn't have I didn't have what would be a natural response. It got me in trouble once because because I was in a situation where I should have panicked, but due to practicing gratitude, I had a higher threshold, like a higher tolerance for things just not going my way, because my brain had learned to see the positive and the way out. And so while you may think that it's a waste of time or it's not worth it to practice gratitude, I am going to give you the evidence that it is, in fact, worth doing. Because if you are just 20% more clear in your brain, you can make decisions that will change your life. You can save your life. You can get deals that will transform your life. You can be around people that what are maybe beneficial to you in your life, that you can support and show up for in different ways just because your brain functions differently. That's how powerful and how incredible the power of gratitude actually is. And that's just my personal experience. I'm not even talking about all of the people that we do know that are very well known, famous people, Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, you name it, who practice gratitude as well as visualization. The two do go together. That's for another day, though. But doing all of these things have, I can't find a single individual who has made it who hasn't practiced gratitude in some form. And couples who practice gratitude actually have a firmer foundation in their relationship too. So it's not just limited to only business. But if you are on board with that and you have practiced gratitude yourself and you've seen some transformation, type in gratitude. Because I really want this to be a conversation if possible. If you're watching the replay, you can still type in the comments. But I'm just going to load my screen here so that you can see the conversation and we can continue to have it together. So just looking for any gratitudes. Okay. Alrighty. Also, I'm going to check my volume really quickly just to make sure that I am completely audible. And I am. Okay. You may be wondering, why am I sharing my conversation? Well, one, it's just out of transparency because I could act like I could accumulate all of this knowledge together. And I do have the wisdom from the books that I read and the practices that I have. But I also just want to have the conversation with you and show you together because there was a beautiful chart that was put together. Let's see here, screen, window, neuroscience. Okay. You can also get a peek into my mind into how I do this. Okay. So the question I asked was, what's the neuroscience behind the daily practice of gratitude? Include tables or visuals as necessary. And so basically, as I was saying in the beginning, it says that gratitude isn't the science behind gratitude isn't just feel good fluff. It's measurable, structural. We know all of this, right? Okay, show me the details, right? Well, first of all, let's see what it actually does. And this is so super important. Understanding that gratitude is not only a positive emotion, it is a state of being. And just so you understand, you cannot switch on and off gratitude. It's a practice that you need to have embedded into the fabric of your very being, into the core. And it's like a muscle. You need to train, you need to practice, and then it will literally, neurologically, so it will actually change your brain. Like there's neurotransmitters, but we'll get into all of that. Your brain is incredibly elastic and it responds to almost any change, right? So gratitude is a state that involves, as it says, cognitive appraisal. So appraisal of benefits received. You would be so surprised how hardwired we are, how much pleasure and reward have a play in how we live our lives, and gratitude is a part of that. Sense of safety or abundance. I started out saying we all want to be safe, okay, and loved, right? Reduced vigilance and stress reactivity. I told you when you wake up, you're scanning for threats, and motivation to reciprocate or contribute. And that has to do with the fact that we're wired for the pleasure and reward. So when we get a hit of that, like dopamine, we're like, oh my gosh, I want to repeat that again. Whether that is scrolling on your phone or whether it is actually practicing gratitude, when you get that sense of safety and abundance and love and okayness and all of that, the brain wants to repeat that again. And that you'll find out why that's important for you. And I'll show you the specific brain regions that are activated as well. Those are really cool. So, what happens in the brain during gratitude? Okay, so this gets a little, I don't want to go into the medical scientific jargon, but all you need to know is that there are literal effects on your brain that produce a result such as emotional regulation, empathy. You stop scanning for threats and start realizing your errors, right? Error detection, effective self-regulation. So what does that mean? If a deal doesn't go right, instead of beating myself up, now I am less self-critical. Can you believe that gratitude does that? Imagine if you had less criticism in your life, the things that you would do. Imagine if you had less anxiety, the things you could accomplish. It's like, and we'll talk about the man with no fear. I love this man, Alex Honnold. He's like becoming one of my heroes because he climbed a 3,000-foot mountain, and a large part of that was because his amygdala, the threat detector, had very low response to fear. So imagine if you had less self criticism and less anxiety because you were consistently practicing gratitude. That can do that. I talked about the dopamine and how that reinforces pro social behavior, the anticipation and motivation, that reward. Okay, so you can reduce depressive inertia. Okay, so that's really good. Threat detection, feeling safer. That is actually key. One of the things that I'm continuously learning is that if you feel safe in your body, which again, we'll get into Alex Honnold, this incredible climber who's just changed mountain climbing history, you can accomplish feats that are not humanly possible, all because your body feels safe. There's a change in your brain that happens when you see this mountain. You're no longer freaking out, but instead you're telling yourself, I can do this. I can climb. And a lot of that has to do with gratitude. Even when you overcome things in the past, you can look back at that and be like, oh, I'm grateful that I took a chance on myself, and you will repeat that behavior. I'm so grateful that I did that, even though it's hard to get up at 5 and 6 in the morning to either prepare for these lives with you or to even be on camera with you. It's so rewarding. I'm so grateful. And then what? I wanna do it again the next day and the next day. You see how this works? Just showing up because your body feels safe is like can be life changing. So I talked about all the well, not all of them, but the neurotransmitters. Dopamine makes you want to repeat that practice. But that can also be negative practices. So if you are scrolling with no end, that's the easiest one to use. Just understand your brain is going to want to repeat that action, because you're making a neurochemical change in your brain. And the response is so good that you're going to want to repeat it. So, this is where a little bit of constraint, this is where a little bit of detachment comes in. This is where boundaries come in. But the opposite is also true. So, if there's something that you've done, like I mentioned, it might have been really hard, but very rewarding, then you do that again. And your brain will it'll catch up with you. It'll know, I want to do that again. Serotonin, so boosted through social connection and positive appraisal linked to mood stabilization. So serotonin and oxytocin are very, very interesting to me. Also, when you think about boot camps and like, how many of you have ever been through boot camp? Type in boot camp. I'm very curious. Yes, there's the boot camp that you can join us on actually for the Crypto Alliance, because wealth is emotional, and that is also like 80% of the reason why we even have our community about health, wealth, and freedom, which is correlates with Crypto Alliance, because wealth is so incredibly emotional. You need to feel safe. You need to make the right decisions. You need to continue to make those decisions. So you need to have stamina. Showing up every day as your best self allows you to do that. And with the going to andreaferguson.com, signing up, getting inside of the Telegram where we talk about health, wealth, and freedom increases your serotonin and your oxytocin and your dopamine in healthy ways. You do it together as a community. How did I get here? Because I talked about a boot camp. So we do offer you the ability to create wealth in a safe environment, in a safe way, which your brain will certainly appreciate. But also what I meant is a literal physical boot camp. So that could be in the military, it could be in the paramilitary, any kind of hardship that you go through or tough challenge that you go through with other people will actually, even though it's a challenge, the overcoming of the challenge and the going through together can produce these neurotransmitters that actually help you to increase your trust with that group. And that feel good bonding hormone, the oxytocin, helps you to feel safe and secure and have trust. Cortisol, which is that rush of, it's a stress hormone that's released when you feel threatened. That could even be, it could be a real physical imminent threat or danger, like you need to hightail it out of there, then you'll get this rush of cortisol, or it could be stress and or trauma where you're just stuck in this loop where the cortisol keeps coming out. When you practice gratitude, it literally lowers. Um, so yeah, in short, gratitude shifts you from survival mode, fight or flight, into connection and expansion. Now, what are the long term? Oh my gosh. I love, love, love this study. I love this study. I love it so much that I'm going to bring it up. Um, I had it here, but I'm going to bring it up again. This study, this Indiana University study, I read about it actually in a book. When I was studying mindfulness-based stress reduction, and this, it's incredible really where this, they track participants doing gratitude journaling over 3 weeks, and even 3 months later, the brain was still responding, which is just incredible to me. So, you had, so MPFC, remember these there's a bunch of medical terminology that you don't have to memorize, you just need to know what the output is. So emotional regulation, valuation, empathy. When you're like long-term improvement in the regulation and all of that, right? So it's the medial prefrontal cortex. You don't all you need to know is what I just mentioned. So you have this long-term appreciation, right? When even when shown gratitude expressions of kindness or thanks, lower overall activity in the default mode network associated with rumination. And let me get this study up for you. Increased gray matter density in prefrontal areas linked to emotional. Do you understand also you could you could even live longer. Like it's just incredible all the things that we kind of take for granted really. Um but shouldn't. And let's see if this study if I can get it to come up. Here we go. I'm too impatient. I need to show you this now. So I'm gonna show you the fMRIs here. They are incredible. Okay, look at this. Okay, so these are the people. Oh gosh, you have to they were shown certain things to stimulate well, that's not very specific, is it? So these are Holocaust testimonies, 50,000 of them recorded. Testimonies selected that involved gift giving, like hiding, shelter, food, liberation. By the way, if you haven't read the book by Viktor Frankl, the Man's Search for Meaning, you should definitely. I encourage you to read it. But here we have examples, right, of gratitude, even in the sickest, darkest, most unfavorable situation. They still had testimonies of being given food and helping to be hidden, and then their liberation. I had to leave the country, and a woman in the government stamped my passport so I could flee to England. I had been sick for weeks in Auschwitz. One of the fellow prisoners was a doctor and found medicine for me so I would not die. So one of the Allied soldiers who liberated our camp noticed that I could not see. He gave me his glasses, allowing me to see for the first time in 3 years. So the stories were transcribed into first person stimuli for the subjects to read and experience for themselves. A woman at the immigration agency stamps your passport so you can flee to England. You've been sick for weeks. A prisoner who is a doctor finds medicine and saves your life. An allied soldier gives you his glasses you can wear. You can see for the first time since the war began. So this was a part of the stimuli creation process. And then so they go through, it's stimuli was tested on 42 participants, 21 females, so pretty good ratio in separate behavioral experiment. And then they start looking at their brains, like what happens, right? And so what are the results? They rated their gratitude on each gift, a scale of 1 to 4. Oops, where did that go? There we go. Um, so they're rating it and revealed the participants felt involved in the experiment, felt their feelings were similar to if they were in the same situation, and they had increase in their empathy and understanding for the Holocaust. Participants reported that putting themselves in the situations of the experiment was not very difficult. Yeah, I'm sure. And the responses to the open ended questions indicated that participants did not find any single stimulus to be confusing. Okay, so they double checked that. But look at this, a comparison of brain activity during the reflection period to baseline. So you can see all of these places lit up. Okay. And here's the medial prefrontal activity correlating with participants' gratitude ratings. So why? Why did they do this? Because they wanted to simulate what would happen if they had these situations where they were put into the shoes of the Holocaust survivors and they were acting as if they were the ones to receive this form of empathy, of gift giving, of aid, and all of that. And this gratitude, right? The cool thing is that measuring them months up to 3 months later, and they still see these changes in the brain. I find that to be crazy where they have this lower overall activity in the default mode network. So that's what ruminating means when you think over and over and over and over again about the negative things, right? Increased gray matter density. I just find it to be incredible. Like, give me a wow if you think that's incredible, how regular gratitude changes how the brain automatically processes future input. I mean, okay, and now it continues why this matters. Because you are becoming less reactive. You're becoming less reactive to things that would otherwise toss you around like the wind. You're becoming less reactive to the volatility. And remember, I told you wealth is emotional and you want to stay operational. So in the Crypto Alliance, you learn all about how to stack your wealth, but you also learn how to, with me in our Telegram community, you learn how to stay grateful. You learn how to think about the things in your life that you still have. So I'm going to practice gratitude for the next 30 days, specifically writing in my journal, because I want to have these changes. I want to be less reactive to the changes that happen in the crypto market. I want to be able to improve my long range decision making because I'm able to stretch back, reach it. Something has changed in my brain where my nervous system is no longer hijacked. I want to be able to unconsciously train my brain to notice opportunities. And I think that is a very powerful thing. Wow, wait until you can control the brain via AI. It's coming. I mean, that's possible. That's quite, listen, we have these biosensors already. So we have rings, we have Apple Watches, we have all kinds of things that take our pulse and look at our blood pressure and understand how much oxygen we have flowing through our bodies. And you know what the next thing is? When you download apps that connect to all of your biosensors, it will tell you, Andrea, you're speaking too fast, slow down, take a breath. Just to regulate your nervous system. It's absolutely indeed coming. It's I would argue it's already here through our biosensors that we have, but it's going to continue more and more and more. But gratitude is not about looking away from pain. It says it's about expanding your processing window so pain isn't the only thing you see. Pain isn't the only thing you see. I think one of the best examples of this is if you compare what is happening in Israel and Iran, all right? Or just pick anything where there's escalation and there's tension. And you think about where you are right now, your state of being, your physical presence. Are you hiding, worrying about imminent physical threat or harm or danger? Most of us are not. And Godspeed to those that are. Prayerfully, whatever threat is amongst you will end very soon. But for most of us, we are not seeing the health that we already have, the freedom that we have, the safety that we have, even the absence of pain. And one thing that Shankar and I did last night was we decided to, instead of saying, okay, what are you grateful for? Instead of saying that, we said to one another, what's everything that went right today? What didn't go wrong? Because that's another form of practicing gratitude as well. And when you think about the fact that we are not in the midst of war itself, how we have food to eat, we have clothes on our back. But even if you don't have all of those things, there's still things that didn't happen. For example, I didn't stop breathing. I didn't, I know it's especially true for the people that didn't go on certain planes. I remember, like, Godspeed to those affected by Air India, what happened. But Shankar and I had just come back to the US from Bali, and I believe we took a Korean airline. Well, the very next day, we found out that there were people that took that airline, or maybe it was a Jeju airline, but it was a Korean airline, did not make it home. Um, some of them didn't. I think there were survivors, but it's the little things. It's thinking about also the things that didn't happen to you that can rewire your brain. That is a form of gratitude that I don't think we tap into enough. So, anyway, before daily gratitude, just to recap, because I could go all day on that. I didn't even know that I would spend so much time on this. But so you have these threats. You have the amygdala scanning for threats. You have the default mode network. That just means you're ruminating a lot over the things that didn't happen right. And you have this increase in stress, the cortisol. After 21 to 30 days of daily gratitude, you have more regulation in your prefrontal cortex. You have the reward pleasure system working. So that means you're looking for opportunities for gratitude. You have an increase in oxytocin, that's that bonding hormone, and you have a decrease in the stress hormone, which is cortisol. I would say, and it lasts up to 3 months later. Unbelievable. Tell me that's not unbelievable. So, have you had your experiences with cortisol? We've all had our experiences with cortisol. That's the stress hormone. Have you had your experiences with gratitude that you can remember that have affected your life or changed your life? And if the answer is I don't know or I'm not sure, can you be more intentional with how you view gratitude? Can you be more intentional with keeping a note of it? Maybe you're not going to journal for 15 minutes, but maybe you can write one thing or two things or three things that you're grateful for. At least think of it. And then ask yourself, is your current environment reinforcing hypervigilance? Meaning, are you creating a safe environment for yourself? Whether that be with the people that you love, that you surround yourself with, whether it be in your physical environment, because you maybe you have a mess all over the place and your brain subconsciously doesn't feel safe. So your body doesn't feel safe. Are you practicing gratitude transactionally, meaning just to feel positive? Or are you doing it because you know, as I'm teaching you now, it can entirely reset and retrain your nervous system? Because if you do it in a fake way, did you know that you can actually uh, train yourself To lie, your nervous system will actually pick up on that too, that you're lying to yourself. So, are you doing it in an authentic way? Or are you just doing it for the sake of positivity's sake? I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. So grateful. Are you really taking the time to think about all of the things that you're grateful for? Not it doesn't have to be all of the things either. That's quite a misconception. So, what would shift if gratitude were not an emotional state, but a form of mental armor? What would happen if, before you go into any hostile situation, whether it's a hangry Andrea, Shankar, if you're listening, because she didn't get breakfast, or your wife or spouse or husband or boyfriend or kids or employer, employee, whatever the relationship is, before you go into a situation that's not necessarily favorable, are you using gratitude as a mental armor? Those are just some things that I want you to think about and rewatch the stream. Maybe there's some nuggets. We will have to do a part two because there's a bunch of myths that I really want to go into that I believe will be helpful for you. And I'll tell you the myths that I had about gratitude as well, and how I walked myself through the journey. And I guess that pretty much concludes the stream. We're a little bit over time. I do, I'll leave you that study, the neural correlates of gratitude, where they have the fMRI and the gratitude journaling of 3 weeks, in the bottom of the stream. So you can go and look at it yourself. I just barely skimmed the surface. And I also want you to, as I said, think about something that didn't go wrong yesterday. Let's just take a moment. I'll put in the one song before we leave here. And if you have enjoyed this stream, normally I do streams where, we have music and I'm talking about something we're mostly walking you through. It's funny because I said Mondays would not be a day where I'm slamming people with science. I'm sorry if I went too heavy on that. But let me know what your thoughts are, how you feel. Hopefully it helps you to um does it look like it's coming through. Is it coming? Okay. Yeah, hopefully it helps you to have a little bit more appreciation for the science behind gratitude, and you'll practice it more, understanding that there is power in practicing gratitude every day. It does affect your business, it does affect your relationships, it does affect your success. Because I'm telling you, there's not a single person that has got to the top without practicing gratitude. And so, my hope for you would be that you walk away understanding that wealth is emotional, so you stay operational. And that's all I have for you. My name is Andrea Ferguson. We'll see you tomorrow.